Hello, I am Michael Proctor, and I will be reviewing the book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. The Psychology of Money. And we'll be looking at this was for me, this was a very emotional book because I have a bad relationship with money. Um, there's certain things that are mentioned in the book that are correct, and certain things I may dispute. But my relationship with money is very emotional. It's very turbulent. It's very oh my goodness. It's a gambit of emotions. But let's review this book, and I want to thank Miss Zaya for having me review this book and me providing it to her. And I hope Zaya that you enjoy this review. I'll be reviewing the introduction in chapter one of the psychology of money. So it ought to be an interesting analysis. Okay, within the book, the author he introduces himself, and he starts off saying how he was a valet during the summertime, working, I believe, in a hotel, and making money as a teenager or in college, and trying to make it in life and save up a couple of pennies. So we see that this author worked as a young man, and he wanted a future for himself. So he talks about how one of the clients of the hotel was a very very rich man, and that person had broke a $500 lamp, a lamp costing $500, and the management came up to him and asked him that he needed to pay the $500, and this wealthy client said, "How dare you ask me to do this? And don't ever come back in my face again and ask me to do such a audacious thing. How dare you?" The author goes on to say that several years later, um, because of his lavish spending and the way he treated money, he went broke. So, and if I'm forgetting anything, please let me know. But the client, he didn't care about money. He had a nonchalant attitude about money. He just threw the $500 in the person's face. Um, he then goes on to cite two people of two opposite financial financial backgrounds. One was a person named Ronald Reed, and the other one was a person named Richard Fuscone. So we look at Mr. Reed first, and Mr. Reed was a man of meager beginnings, and he came from humble beginnings, we'll say. He had no education, no formal education, no formal training. I believe Mr. Reed worked as a janitor, as was written in the introduction in the book. Mr. Reed went on to purchase a $12,000 two-bedroom home. He was married in his early 30s and widowed in his 50s. Mr. Reed, invested in blue chip stocks. I believe, let's say from his 40s up to his 70s when he retired. 70s, it doesn't, I have to go back into the book, but it doesn't mention the retirement length. But we believe Mr. Reed worked for an inordinate amount of time. And Mr. Because of him saving and the investments, and Mr. Reed being frugal and following a strict lifestyle, Mr. Reed was able to acquire $8 million in assets, in stock. And when he died, he donated 2 million to his children, and the other 6 million to a charitable hospital. Mr. Foscone was something of a different nature. Mr. Foscone was an MBA graduate, and he was one of Crane's Businessmen of the Year. Mr. Foscone was not fastidious with his finances. So he lavishly purchased an 18,000 square foot mansion, and the maintenance and, let's say, the mortgage and everything came up to $90,000 per year. When in 2008, when the bubble market crash hit, um, Mr. Foscone had a high debt ratio, and he couldn't liquidate his assets at all, and this left Mr. Foscone bankrupt. So when he went to the bankruptcy court, the judge asked him if he had anything that he wanted to declare, and Mr. Foscone said that he was broke, or whatever. Or whatever terminology he used. He didn't have any liquid assets. Mr. Foscone, as described by Mr. Housel, Mr. Morgan Housel, the author of this book, as being greedy. Reed, Mr. Reed is described as frugal and intelligent, and Mr. Foscone is described as greedy. So, because Mr. Foscone lavishly spends his money, you didn't hear a lot about investings or savings like Mr. Reed did. So we see the analysis of Mr. Reed versus Mr. Foscone. Mr. Foscone was just interested in spending and enjoying his life instead of diligently saving his money. Uh, what are the key points of the introduction that Mr. Housel presents to us? Um, Finance is guided, or we can use the word determined, by people's behaviors. How I might behave might make sense to me, but look crazy to others. I have to interject right here. Um, Years ago, I was dating someone who was into finance, and the person was in, some of you who are watching this video may know, Prime America. So she was interested in Prime America, this, that, and the other, and this investment, that, and well, she was a businesswoman, and so um, it was a horrible relationship. But needless to say, when we broke up, I went and out of depression, I went and used my credit cards and bought this, that, and the other, and I wound up back in debt that I was before. Because what I did was, when I was working, I took out a loan to clear off my debts and pay my debts, and out of emotion, breaking up with this person, I I went and took my credit cards and bought things that I thought would make me feel better, that I thought would make me happy, but it didn't. It just put me in more debt and more problems and more financial strains. The author goes on to say that finance can be understood through psychology and history, and he uses a comment by one of the renowned authors, Voltaire. And Voltaire states that history never repeats itself. Man always does. So we are always prone to repeating history, and that's written in the history books. That's seen in life, and we understand why this happens, because we're prone to repeating our errors over and over again, which I do agree. I do agree. Um, this is a picture, or these are several pictures of the Great Depression in the 1930s. You see people on soup lines. You see people outside of shacks and looking hungry and starving and destitute. This I never came from that environment, but I can understand and relate to being impoverished. I can understand and relate to not having money. I can understand being hungry. Even though, God bless, my mother worked, she worked many days. She put me through private school. She sent me to college, and she made sure I had a meal to eat every single day. When my mother bought her first home, um, we didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. She bought me a little tiny Christmas present, and we had chicken livers one night for dinner because she had paid her mortgage, and she wanted to make it. And my mother, God bless her, she was a homeowner. She was a homeowner for a long time, for 30 years. But why am I showing you this picture? Because above the picture, if you're looking, it says JFK's remarks about the Great Depression. I did not notice when they asked John F. Kennedy, who was running for president at that time, what was his impressions of the Great Depression, because Kennedy was born during that time. And Kennedy said something. You know what? In all my years of living, I never knew Kennedy had made certain remarks about the Great Depression, which was shocking. I can't say appalling, because he lived the life that he was destined to live, and we all live the life that we are destined to live. If I came from a rich family and my great grandmother and grandmother were not affected by the Great Depression, I probably wouldn't be cognizant of these pictures that you are viewing today. So, getting back to the story, they asked Kennedy what did he think about the Great Depression, and Kennedy said that he had no knowledge or suffering of the Great Depression. They went on their trips and their yachts and Martha's Vineyards and everything else, and life was enjoyable for them. They were not cognizant of um of what the Great Depression was. And they um the elitists such as John F. Kennedy, the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, and many other wealthy, affluent families. Um, they they understood that they were not affected by the Great Depression. So let's will I put in some more pictures of the Great Depression and the men waiting online for food and probably employment. And it was a very rocky time. But the thing is, what the author is trying to impress is that people who have history, so the people of the Great Depression and the people, descendants, probably the firstborn during the First Depression, had knowledge of saving money when there was no money, had knowledge of buying houses and investing. Now, when we're two and three descendants removed from from this suffering, we forget what our forefathers endured by standing on these soup kitchen lines, waiting for employment, not getting employment. I remember I was watching a documentary where it was a black it was I'm sorry, it was a black news channel that comes on Sundays um in New York, and the moderator, the African American moderator, asked one of the historians, why did the why did some black people join the Communist Party during the Great Depression? And his answer was that the Depression was so bad, we were in the gutter, so we had to join we had to join the Communist Party to get out of the gutter because things were so bad. I relate to these things because I understand. I understand. I've never been to Martha's Vineyards. I've never been on a luxury cruise. I have not enjoyed some of the things that wealthy people enjoy. So I can relate to this. But on the other hand, I have I have oh my goodness, I can't think. I have the propensity of forgetting those times also and being abusive with my money as well. So the author hits 2 points which are correct. And we'll go on to the next slide here. Oh, this is this this is wonderful. When I was a kid, we're looking at the first bullet point here, lottery tickets. When I was a kid, we used to have lotto. And you know what? This video is about to expire, so I will terminate this. But lottery tickets and living paycheck to paycheck, the author brings up a good analysis about these things. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at the timer, and hopefully I have more time to I'm sorry for messing up this video. So the author brings up lottery tickets and and I living here in New York, we had a person that worked at the telephone company, and he won $5 million. And the first thing he did was he divorced his wife, married his girlfriend, and he overspent. So he won $5 million, and let's say he spent up to $8 million in winning. So he might have went $3 or $4 million over what he was what he won. And at the end, he wound up going back to the telephone company, being a janitor again. When our forefathers worked, pardon me, they worked until they died. My great grandmother, she was an entrepreneur. She owned a beautician salon when she came here in 1923, and she owned a beauty salon, and she was able. I'm sorry, she came here in 1923, was a maid for a family, and she made 25 cents an hour. From there, she went to beautician school and received her certificate, and worked in Harlem doing people's hair. And then from there, she saved up enough money to open up her own beauty store. So my great grandmother was able to realize the American dream and make it. Um, she did not she did not retire. My great grandmother had heart issues, and she died. Um, um, she finished doing someone's hair out of. She got up out of her sick bed and she did someone's hair, washed her hair, then went back upstairs, and then had another heart attack and went to the hospital and died. I myself, three generations later, I was able to work a civil service job, and I was able to retire at the age of 57 and a half. And my when I went to the doctor, she looked at me and said, "Michael, you retired too early." I was offended, but I understood what she. And sometimes I do feel guilty that I retired early, but I had the capability. I was offered a retirement package, and I was able to retire. And I'm living off my retirement now, so I was able to retire, and I was able to have a good education, to make a good living, to retire at 57 and a half. So that is the reason why I was able to retire at 57 and a half. Lastly, the author brings up the behavior of animals, and he uses animals. He uses dogs as an example, and uh, as learned behavior. But I want to use cats as the example of learned behavior. If you look at cats, cats are the descendants of the lions and the tigers, so on and so forth. They're one of the off breeds. And if you look how a cat behaves in your house, a cat will climb up on the mantles. A cat will climb up on the Christmas tree. A cat wants a strategic position, just like an animal in the jungle. A cat needs to be in high heights to survey their prey. And cats are jungle, they're descendants of jungle animals. So he uses Mr. The gentleman, the author of this book, Mr. Housel, uses this analogy to say that we use these instinctual behaviors as such as animals do to survive. And I don't think that's the case. I disagree with that because you could come from a family that doesn't save a dime and you're able to save a dime. They made 30,000, you made 80,000. So I don't agree with it totally. Um I'm going to conclude this video now. It's been a very educational video. I'm glad I read it. That was the introduction in chapter 1 of the psychology of money. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be making more of these videos reviewing this book, and hopefully I can learn something from this as well. And thank you.